Hey art folks. This morning I'm going to show you how to transfer your photograph onto a block of linoleum. This is going to be for a printmaking project that we're going to do. Now, printmaking is a pretty involved process, but one of the reasons artists do printmaking is that you get multiples of the same image. So let me show you how to get your photograph transferred onto a block of linoleum, and that's step number one in the process. So a few of the supplies you're going to need are a block of linoleum. One thing I like to do with this block of linoleum, sometimes when they cut it, you get these little pieces of linoleum stuck. It's going to be important that your block is nice and smooth, so you might take a moment, kind of brush your block clean, or even pick off some of those little chunks that get onto your block. Now, a couple of weeks ago, you might remember that we had you guys go out and do some photography, and we also used Photoshop to do a couple manipulations. So I have a photograph here that is printed out 6 inches by 8 inches, and that happens to be the exact same size as your linoleum block. So what you want to do is line up your photograph to the block. You can either use your fingers to kind of feel for the edges, or sometimes people will hold it up to the light and you can kind of see where things line up, or even to a certain extent, sometimes you can almost see the ink from the photograph coming through. So let me make sure everything is on the block. All right, feels pretty good. Now I'm going to flip this thing over, and we're going to secure the photograph to the block of linoleum, and you're really only going to need 2 small pieces of tape. Now, by small pieces of tape, yeah, that should be sufficient. I'm going to create a little hinge. So I'm going to lay it down and attach it to the paper. By a hinge, it's kind of like the hinge on a door. And that way your photograph's not moving around, and we'll be ready to actually transfer your imagery onto the block. Okay. That should be sufficient. Your photograph's not going anywhere. What we'll do is we'll open up our hinge, and we're going to be using what's called transfer paper. Now, it's important that you put your transfer paper into or sandwich it in between the two properly, okay? Now, if it looks like your transfer paper has got lines and like somebody else has used it before, it's because somebody probably has, okay? When you use your transfer paper, we're not going to throw this stuff away. It can be used again and again and again. There are 2 distinctive sides. There's kind of this shiny black side, and then the back of it is kind of a dull gray. What you want to do is have that dark, shiny side laying down, okay? Now, there's a little bit of wiggle room. You just want to make sure that it's covering your block. And we're going to sandwich that down. And you're going to use a colored pencil. I would use a colored pencil that shows up, something that you can tell what you've outlined and what you haven't. I'm going to use something like a red. And I'm going to follow the contours, not only around my face, some of the contours within my face, but I'm also going to pay attention to some of these really subtle usage of light and the way that light and shadow falls on my face. And we're also going to include the background. So you're going to put a little bit of pressure on your pencil, and as I follow the contours, your major contours, not only on the outside of your head, your shoulders, your neck, your eyebrows, all that good stuff. But I'm also looking for some of these subtle shapes. Try to follow along with me here. I see a shape that's kind of formed through the way the light was hitting my face. Okay? And those types of shapes, they're not always easy to identify, but one thing that is helpful is sometimes like kind of squinting your eyes, and you might be able to see those shapes, or blur your eyes so that those shapes become more apparent to you. Now I'm not going to do this whole thing right now, but I'll just do enough so that you can kind of see what's happening. Just a couple more lines here, because I see the light is kind of bouncing off my nose. You might notice that shadows and highlighted areas oftentimes bump up next to each other. Uh-oh. Too much strength. All right. I had a backup pencil ready to go because this happens to me all the time. Let me just show you what I've got so far, okay? Now don't take your paper off the block. Keep that on there until you're certain that you've gotten everything outlined, because getting your paper lined up to the block the exact same way would be pretty tough. But if I remove the transfer paper, you can see that what I've outlined so far is going right onto the block. And I can put this back in again, do it with the dark side down, and I can resume. But that's all for now, and maybe we'll have another video to follow up tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.